Thanks, Guy. So, I'm Simon, I'm from France, and I'm gonna talk about what is it to showcase and curate experimental games. So, a small introduction first. What's the situation? A month ago at last GDC, there was a talk from Terry Kavanagh and Porpentine about a selection of indie games that they really enjoyed and they want to share. That was a quite interesting talk because at the end, one of their conclusions was that indie game scene doesn't really need more journalists. They need more curators. So for me, it was quite convenient because curator is something that fits to what I do in my collective. So my collective is called One Life Remains. We are from Paris, we are 5. We have 2 developers who are specialized in fast prototyping. We have 1 game designer who is also a PhD student in philosophy, always about games. We also have a really weird sound designer and composer. This is a crazy guy and he always do a lot of things. We do not have a graphic designer, but we like to collaborate on different projects with different people. And the 5th person is me. Me is a curator. That means that I'm not participating in the creative process of a game. My job is more before and after a game production. My main goal is to try to find a way to showcase and to present what we do. We do a lot of installation games. We do a lot of weird things on stage. Let's call that performance. We like to design games that are meant to be played on stage. We also organize events such as exhibition, underground party, these kind of things. The French scene is something very special. There is not really a French indie scene. So to continue on the next slide. So about the experimental game scene. We talk a lot about indie scene, indie games. I really don't want to define that or to try to talk about that. It's really something that is often talked and discussed. Experimental game for me, it's not about taking small paths. This is not about making a game for a niche. This is more about diving into the unknown, you know? It's all about exploration. You don't know where it will lead you. You just do that for the sake of the research. It's not being cool about games, this is being crazy with them, okay? And the idea with this experimental game is to explore this medium. So here on the screen you might see different examples of what I consider is the experimental game scene. Could you please raise your hand if you know at least half of those games or those situations, just to see if the audience is familiar with Guy. Okay, so we have 2 or maybe 3 people who know at least half of these things. So some are just events, some are devices that has been made especially to revisit the experience of a game. This is the case with this pad dance for the game GIRP that you probably know as a flash game. This is used by Wild Rampus during some game party. And I won't develop for all these examples because I have other things to say and only have 20 minutes. So, what about game curator? This term, this word curator, might be new for some of you, but it exists since many years in the digital art scene or in the contemporary art scene. It also has been used in the indie game scenes since something like 7 or 8 years. Here is some example of game curators that have been working on the indie scene. Maybe you might know the work of Kokoromi. Kokoromi is a collective of 4 people made by game developer and game curator. You have 4 people, either Kili, Cindy Poremba, Damien Difede, and the infamous Phil Fish, that you might know. The goal of Kokoromi is to produce event and to showcase experimental game. The aim of this group was to try to show the creativity that can be on a medium such as video games. And they organized several events. The most famous one was Gamma. Gamma has known 4 different editions. This was like an event who select and curate a really weird game according to a thematic. You might know Passage by Jason Rohrer, which was featured first by Gamma 2. And that was one example of a game curator in the indie scene. Another group that you might probably know is Baby Castles. How many of you know Baby Castles or their work? Whoa, okay. Baby Castle is a sort of group in New York City. It is a group of curators. They do not produce games. They showcase them, they make exhibition, party. Most of their work are around arcade. They used arcade cabinet as the ultimate things to showcase indie games, and they present things in different events, such as party, these kind of things. Last year, they have made a party called Fuck the Screen. It was about game without screen, so games such as Johann Sebastian Just and this kind of stuff. I will continue, so that's just a bunch of examples about what can be a game curator in the indie scene. So, a quick word about what curating experimental game is about. So, in terms of work, this is about selecting and link pieces, game, art installation together. This is not just about making a list. It's not like, oh, I have a bunch of cool game and I want to present all together. This is more like you have to start from an idea, a theme, that will gather different kind of installation or game and try to make something with them. The whole selection that a curator make has to be relevant as a whole and not only as a fragment. The link between the different pieces shall be emphasized according to which kind of event you will do. For instance, if you do a party, like we can have the night outside, you will prefer to have games that are multiplayer, very short, like a game is maximum 5 or 10 minutes, nothing too much complicated or required like 3 hours to be understood. But an exhibition can prefer this kind of game. It really depends on what you do. Still about that, to exhibit games require to think about the device in the big sense. As I say, if you use party or festival, this is short and you can do it quite often to iterate. Exhibition, it's another medium and it's quite harder to develop. Of course, when you curate a game, you will choose how to display the game. You can, for instance, decide to replace the keyboard by a joystick. It might be nothing, but in terms of experience, it can really change how the game is received. And it's important to think about the device in that way. Of course, a curator should have a panel of ideas to showcase the weirdest game ever. If you have an idea like a 200 multiplayer game in a space shuttle, you might find a solution to showcase the game in this way. Last piece of text. It's important for the curator to know the game well. It's not, he has to play it, he has to know how it works, the intent and all these things. And he has to show the game to a public that sometimes might know nothing about games, or in the other way, is addressing to a kind of very hardcore gamer target, kind of people who play video games. But when we are presenting experimental games, this is usually nothing usual, nothing that's not like the games they are used to play. So you have to find a way to catch their attention and to make them try the game and play the game. The curator has to provide the audience with a lens to understand the game and to play it well. This is all about people who don't know the game should discover them, and people who already know the game should have to rediscover them through a new device or a new way. Like, oh, I never thought about this game in that sense, or I never played this game like that, and these kind of things. Some example, I take a quick example. We have made more than a year ago. We work with a theater in France, which asked us to do an exhibition of indie games. We had a carte blanche for that, and they only wanted it on an arcade cabinet. That was one of the requirements. They want an arcade cabinet. So the arcade cabinet is something quite common in the indie game scenes. This is easy to have, easy to build, and it's when you launch it, it's usually quite working well. So you don't have to stay around. It's really easy to use. A lot of indie game developers have used that to showcase games, such as Baby Castle, as you can see again on this screen. You have the Winitron, all this kind of game, on this kind of arcade cabinet. So we have decided to think differently. We didn't want to do some things that have been already made in the indie scene. So we go for a very cheap kind of cabinets. You know, the kind of things that you can build in 2 hours with aluminum bar and cardboard. You can see on the screen this kind of cabinets that we use. For a bunch of euro, you can build a structure by yourself. And the idea was so we had this kind of very cheap cabinet, okay? And we wanted to have something else in terms of controller. So we decided to not put joystick and arcade button, but to put keyboard. Keyboard, it's mostly an office object more than a game object, okay? Except if you have a computer player. And so we wanted to provide a really weird things with the cabinet, and we put some keyboard. So we had our thematic for this exhibition. Then we could proceed by selecting the game. For that, we have chosen several different games from the indie scene internationally that have a very weird relation with the keyboard. Some might be one-button games, some other you will be frenetically push the button in all the way. All have a really particular relationship with the keyboard. And to reinforce this idea of this very cheap and arcade punk cabinet, we have pulled out all the keys that wasn't required to play the game. So doing so, it provides a real trashy feelings when you arrive in front of the arcade cabinet. But it is also quite convenient because when you are in front of a keyboard with only 2 keys, you already know which keys you will use. You don't have to find the keys or find a way to explain. So it's really easy to understand. And so it was kind of little thing we have done 3 times in France last year. And it works really well, this idea of a punky thing, because people like to custom themselves. They took marker and put the high score on the cardboard and this kind of thing. So this was a very simple example of curating indie games. Here I will present some other idea. This is just trails that you can follow. Some might be obvious, but sometimes it's necessary to present them. So I will present this way with some example we have made in our collective in France. So the first thing is, let's call events only. Imagine you produce a game that is only playable during certain events. It can be festival, it can be party, it can be exhibition, whatever you want, okay? So that's what I call the events only games. As I said, we developed some installation game. This one is a game called And the Rhino Says, quite a long word for a small game. It's about illusion and misdirection. And we only show the game during events such as exhibition, festival, these kind of things. And you cannot play the game outside of this event. So the idea of these kind of things is quite interesting, because when you have somebody who will play the game and really enjoy them, they will talk about it, okay? On Facebook or among their friends. And this is the idea of you have people that really enjoy a weird game, but it's only playable at this kind of party. So if you wanted to play it, you will have to go to the party. So it's both getting value for the event and the game. So this is a way to do so. And usually we rent the game for exhibition, this kind of thing. So we gain money on that by renting it according to the time of the exhibition, or this kind of things. Another example, quite quickly, is Gigantomachy. This is just a prototype that you see on the screen. Imagine a versus fighting game, two giants, one giant against a giant, and you can control a giant with 6 buttons, but the 6 buttons are displayed on a very long controller. So you can play 1 versus 1, but you will have to run to catch the button at the good moment and this kind of thing. Or you can play with your friends and try to collaborate all together and push at the good time to beat the other team. This is a very small prototype. It was just to make a proof of concept, and then we are working on having a way to display it on a huge building outside with a very long furniture in a city, and so that's another idea. The Wild Rumpus Party, some of them are here at the festival, works a little bit like that. They have a lineup of games, they are doing party, and some of those games are only playable during this party. You won't be able to play it outside, so it's just to show that the concept already exists and is applied. Another idea, which is more extreme in a sense, is think about, digital games are digital, so you can have several copies, a lot of things. With things like Steam, you have probably a bunch of games you have never played, but you have them in your digital library, okay? Imagine the opposite, that there is a game that exists, but there is only one object of these games, okay? This is something that has been made sometime by experimental game creator. We have done that 2 years ago with a game called Generations. Generations is a conceptual game, it's still a game, which require to be played on 2 centuries to be finished, okay? So you won't be able to finish the game during your lifetime. So you will have to play it on the long term and to pass it to someone else, maybe one day someone will finish the game. Might sound like a joke, but this is not a joke. The game is currently exhibited in Dublin, and it will go to Moscow, and this is a piece that lives by itself from player to player. And we have designed a special shell case for the iPhone in order to provide it with a sense of uniqueness, something quite unique. We thought about the possibility to make like 5 or 6 different objects that we can sell as an object game and not as a digital game that you can download on the Apple Store or these kind of things, because it makes no sense for such a game. It won't be well received, and you could have a very bad experience with these kind of things. Quickly, it might remind you other projects such as Jason Rohrer Chain World, when he built a mod for Minecraft on a USB key, and he give it to someone. When these people die, he have to quit the game and give the key to someone else who will play like that until he die and give the keys to someone else. So the world is building from player to player, but you never knew who was there first, and that provides a sense of archaeology, some things that other people were there before you, but you don't know them. And the game exists only on a USB key. So a lot of examples that I will explain here. It's about performances. Imagine, currently having a game that provides a sense of show is quite common with all the esports games like StarCraft or League of Legends or these kind of things, provide a lot of show, but it's really like a sport, okay? Could we imagine games that are designed and meant to be played in front of an audience? That's this kind of question that we have been exploring among my collective. So we have designed games that are only playable on stage. One player do it, and the audience just watch and enjoy the thing as a show. It's not a question of interactivity. This is just a question of can game generate a spectacular thing, something that need to be understood and can be appreciated like that. And usually it's quite experimental, but it works well. And we do these kind of things like gigs, like if we were a band, and we go in concert hall and place where new music are made, and we suggest to make a show with this kind of game. So we have done that for different games, and this is usually very weird and very abstract, but it's working well with any kind of audience usually. It might make remember some games such as Cello Fortress by Joost van Dongen, which is a game where the creator of the game will play cello, and he playing against 4 other people which are playing with an Xbox pad. So he is a fortress. He will defend with some note and tone, and the other player have to beat him. And this is the kind of game that is only playable at events, so this is like the thing I've said before. So I will end my talk with a kind of slide. So about why working with a curator. A curator shall take care of your work and give it value by cultural and artistic exposure. It's not just about sales, especially when you are doing experimental stuff. It's about showing your work, your process, and what kind of concept and new thing you wanted to dig. A curator is not necessarily involved in the creative process of the game, but it doesn't matter. He will have another eye on your work, another glance that can give you more highlight in the research field and can more bring you result in some unexpected areas such as, I don't know, museum, lab, concert hall, cinema, theater, a lot of different things that video games is not yet exploring enough. And a curator will have a contact with public and private institutions and will provide you an access to a new kind of audience, patrons, and official support. Think about art residencies. You could use these kind of things to develop your game, have some grant, and make something quite experimental with a group of friends or people, and public and private funding, this kind of thing. So don't be afraid to go experimental, guys. There is so much things to explore. Try to go experimental, adopt a curator, and thanks for listening. You have been very brave.